Disclaimer: I do not condone piracy. The legal and safest way to use emulators is to dump your own files from your physical or digital copies of your games. Any other way is illegal, and again, I cannot condone it. Also, if I go missing after this video goes live, y'all know who did it. Well, I hope you enjoy. So, emulation. It's been a hot topic as of late due to the recent events in the gaming industry, and honestly, I'm all here for it. The more people know about emulation, the better. Now, if you don't know what emulation is, it's basically when you run software like a game or an app, for example, on a device that it wasn't made for. The way it works is you put a game's files on the system, run the game through an emulator, and boom, you're off to the races. You can do it on your PC, your phone, or even other game consoles. Due to the very gray area that is the ethics around this topic, there's a bunch of folks that support emulation and there's a bunch of folks that hate it. Personally, I support emulation wholeheartedly, and I'm here to not only explain why I support it, but to also just talk about how weird I find it to see some people be so against it. Now first off, what's the point of emulation in the first place? Well, there's three main reasons I could think of. The first is being able to play games at a higher graphical fidelity and frame rate for an overall better experience. The second being to preserve games so they can't be lost to time or made unavailable by publishers or game companies. And the third is, well, to pirate. But let's do this in order. Have you ever wanted to go back and replay one of your favorite games from your childhood? Well, without emulation, the only way to go back and play it is to pull out your old system and play it on the original hardware. Now that would be all fine and dandy, but the thing is, for some folks, going back to how that game used to look and feel to play is kinda easier said than done. Now of course you can just chalk that up to us being spoiled by modern gaming, but it's just the truth. Playing a PS5 game at 4K 60 FPS and then going back to play a PS2 game at 480p 30 FPS doesn't exactly feel good. But thanks to emulation, we don't have to do this. Not all of it at least. Alright, pause for a minute. Okay, howdy folks, Jay from the future here. So I was just about to tell y'all about a game called Dragon Guard 3 and how emulation really benefits this game. But in the middle of making this video, when I was about to get footage of the game, this happened. My game got corrupted. Ignoring the fact that 30 hours of my life is gone down the drain now, I can't really show y'all what I want to show y'all about the game, so if any of the footage doesn't really match what I'm saying when I'm talking about the game, that's why. Also, this event has reminded me to tell y'all something about emulators. If you didn't already know, they're not perfect at all. Please make sure to back up all your files and data and all that good stuff. Learn from my misfortune is all I can say. But yeah, I just wanted to let y'all know about all that, and back to the video. You see, emulators give us the option to raise the resolution of any game we want to just about anything we want, and can sometimes raise the frame rate so they can feel more like a modern game. To put an idea in your head of how crazy you can get with this, using the PS3 emulator, RPCS3, you can play God of War 3 at 8K 60 FPS. Now of course nobody's computer can run that, but you get what I'm saying. You can make older games look and feel like official remasters without having to rely on sometimes really slim chances of a game you won't getting a remaster or a re-release at all. Because for example, if you ever played Dragon Guard 3, you already know that Square is never re-releasing that game regardless of how important it is to the overall story of Nier. I adore this game and the story it tells, but I've already accepted that this game is never getting touched again outside of gacha game collabs. I pray that I'm wrong, but I just cannot see a game like this getting re-released in this era of society. The only way to play this game is to either play it on PS3 or use emulation, which actually brings up another reason why people sometimes use emulation instead of playing a game on the hardware it was made for. Sometimes games just run like complete garbage on consoles, and when the game doesn't have a PC version, we're all just kinda stuck with a game that runs bad and we can't do anything about it. I know that this is pretty much the point I just made, but there's a difference between playing a game at a rough but stable 30 FPS, but then there's playing a game with a frame rate that tends to drop into the single digits, and thanks to emulation we can fix that. For example, Dragon Guard 3 is not only stuck on the PS3, it also runs horribly on the system. No matter if you're used to how older games ran or not, it just doesn't feel good to play at all. But with RPCS3, you can run the game just about perfectly at 60 or even 120 FPS if your computer can handle it. And it's not just this game. I'm sure that there's a whole bunch of games that don't run that good on the console it was made for, but don't have a remaster. Now, I would mention a company whose games really benefit from a major boost in resolution and performance, but I won't because getting absolutely violated by a multi-billion-dollar company isn't exactly on my 2023 bingo card. But I can say that it doesn't stop at the resolution and frame rate. That's just the tip of the iceberg. You can change the controls, play with mods, and for some games, you can even play online. Just like older PC games, you can breathe new life back into old console games that otherwise will be left to die, and preserve them so we'll always have an easy way of accessing them. Which brings me to my next point. Now, before I went to writing this section of my script, I tried putting myself into game company's shoes to try to see if there was a valid reason why you want there to be no legal or official way to purchase your older games. Basically, I'm trying to see things from as many perspectives as I possibly can. And outside of a game's plot not really aging well, I can't really find a reason to just pretend like your older games and franchises just don't exist. Personally, if I ran a game company, I want all my games to be available to anybody who be willing to try them out, good or bad. Closing off countless amounts of my older games from people just because they're old feels like I'm abandoning what me and my employees put so much time and work into. It feels like I'm slapping the faces of all the people that sunk years of their lives making those games, and I personally just can't bring myself to do that to somebody. I know when you're running a business, more often than not, morals tend to get thrown out the window when it comes down to either doing what you feel is right and doing what you think will put more money in your pocket. But I also know if I was somebody that woke up, went to work, worked on the game from morning to evening, went home, went to sleep, and woke back up to do the same thing for God knows how many years until the game releases, just to someday see that game get delisted and discarded like it's nothing, a piece of me would just die inside. Also, I know with a lot of companies in this industry, it's about moving on from the distant past and providing brand new experiences with each new generation. But it's not like our love for our older games just go away just because we get new ones. Just because PlayStation released God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok doesn't mean people don't still remember and love the original God of War trilogy. And even if we were to take morality out the situation, making games unattainable doesn't really make sense financially either, unless you're planning on making remasters to someday take advantage of the fact that people can't buy the original anymore. Yes, some companies do that, but not all of them. A lot of companies just sweep their old games and franchises up under the rug and pretend like they don't exist anymore. And outside the fact that that's really frustrating as a gamer, it just doesn't make any sense, to me at least. But anyway, where does emulation come into all this? Well, just about everywhere. You see, as I mentioned a second ago, with consoles, it's never a guarantee that your older games will be compatible with new hardware that comes out. We don't know if the next Nintendo system will be able to play Switch games, nor do we know if the PlayStation 6 will be able to play PS4 games. But with emulation, you'll never have to worry about that. You see, emulators give games eternal life. Since it's just the game's raw files on your system, they're not going anywhere. Nobody can touch them. In a time where we're all getting hit with the reality that the online stores for the consoles of the distant past are closing or are gonna close sooner rather than later, preserving as many games as we can to the best of our ability is getting more and more important with each day that goes by. And emulation is the only way we can do that since, well, emulators don't have an expiration date. The files you run through the emulator don't either. Speaking of, the way you acquire these files can vary depending on your morals and your values. There's a legal way of getting them, and there's an illegal way of getting them. But sometimes you don't really have a choice. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you good folks that everybody that emulates is doing it in a legal way. Not even half the folks that emulate are doing it in a legal way. Most of them are just downloading ROMs off of websites and playing them like that. Is it legal? No. But is it simple? Yes. That's why they do it. There's not really much I can say about pirates since, well, they're just thieves that don't want to pay for games, and that's about it. But I do have a few things to say about the topic of piracy as a whole when it comes to emulation, starting with a misconception I see quite a bit. Okay, so quite a few people think that it's only legally okay to emulate a game when it's unavailable for purchase, but that's not really true. As long as you pay for the game, whether it be buying a physical copy or buying it digitally, it's your legal right as a consumer to be able to dump the files onto your PC and play the game on an emulator. You pay for the game, so you can do whatever you want with it. Doesn't matter if the game's a few decades old or a few days old. Just wanted to get that small bit out of the way before I get to what I really want to talk about in this section. So, as you folks know, with the closure of the Wii U and 3DS eShops, there's no official way to purchase the games for those systems anymore, so it's all fair game now. It's not legal, but at some point, you just gotta throw legality out the window because you're not really given any other choice. Plus, it's not technically stealing when the games ain't for sale anymore. Mr. Arlo said it best in his video about the topic. You can't steal an item from a store that doesn't sell that item. If you download the ROMs for Persona Q and Persona Q2, games exclusive to the 3DS, and play them on your PC, you're not stealing the games at that point because there's no way to pay for the game in a way that benefits Atlas or Nintendo. When piracy is the only practical way to obtain a game, you can't really be faulted since you don't really have any other choice. Of course, companies could make their games available on modern platforms, but for some reason they don't. So I can't blame you if you take matters into your own hands. Heck, I'm guilty of it too. Recently, I played through Nier Automata. I had a real good time with it. I liked it so much that I wanted to try other games in the series. That's when I came across Drakengard, the prequel series to Nier. I went to see if there was a way to buy the games on the modern platform, and I soon found out that not only these games stuck on the PS2 and PS3, but also Drakengard 3 runs like garbage. Knowing that I can't afford a backwards compatible PS3 and use copies of the Drakengard games off of eBay, plus the fact that none of my money would be going to Square or Sony, there was only one other option that not only spares my wallet, but also gives me a better experience than the PS2 or PS3 can give me. So one thing led to another, and fast forward to today, I'm now one of Yoko Taro's biggest fans. Thanks to Emulation and to an extent Piracy, I wouldn't have been able to play what's now one of my favorite game series of all time. And I know for a fact that I'm not the only one that have had experiences like that. Also, just to make sure we're all clear and on the same page, downloading the ROM of a modern game and playing it without having paid for the game beforehand is wrong. If a game just came out on the Switch a few days ago and you just download the game's ROM and play it, you are in the wrong, and I don't condone it. Yes, this whole topic is kinda messy and foggy, and not everybody's gonna have the same moral compass with this kind of stuff. Some folks don't care about what's legal and what's not, but that's on them. I hope at the very least, I was able to shed some light on this topic for y'all and help y'all understand it a little bit more. But yeah, in conclusion, this industry needs emulation if we want to keep our old games alive, because if we don't, who will? Xbox tried its best, but it was only able to do so much with its backwards compatibility service. Nintendo's doing it in the slowest way possible with Nintendo Switch Online, and they only care about their bigger older games if they can charge you $60 for it. And PlayStation just don't seem to care that much. It's a pretty sad fact, but I guess it's just a reality that has to be accepted. It kinda stings that videos like this need to exist. Not because some people think emulation is bad, but because of the fact that we need emulation to preserve our games in the first place. I believe companies can do better than what they're doing right now with game preservation. Much better. I would tell y'all all about it, but that'll have to be its own video. This script's been in the making for long enough. If you got some thoughts or opinions, I'd like to hear them in the comments. I'm always open to discussion. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a like and maybe subscribe. Well, that's all I got for today. Have a good day, folks.